but I wanted to list a few things that we launched. In Q1, we launched our material generator and code assist, making it easier for creators to produce materials and to learn and improve their coding. And one that I'm very excited about, in Q4 of this year, using LLMs, we actually created an interface for developers to interact with our documentation. And it doesn't sound that exciting, but it actually is super exciting because what we created was a natural language interface, similar to what you see in other products out there, where I could go to Roblox and start typing my questions. How do I monetize my game? How do I improve this feature? I need to grow retention. And automatically from all our documentation, get summaries and answers that guide them. We're seeing a lot of adoption from this and take rate, and we believe it's going to help a lot of new developers coming to the platform. Now, we also empower our creators through analytics. We want to give creators the tools to understand their business, make decisions, run their live operations, and ultimately grow their engagement and monetization and retention in their experiences. And we do this by giving them dashboards that allows them to analyze and understand what's happening.
We are just getting started. Thank you.
Please put your hands together for Chief Technology Officer Dan Sturman.
Awesome job. So good to see all of you today. What I'm going to walk us through next 20 minutes is just a quick overview of where Roblox is with artificial intelligence. And of course, you kind of have to be completely ignoring the tech world not to know that AI is causing some incredible opportunities and challenges within every tech company. I'm going to show you how Roblox is taking this full head on, and it's going to be an incredible, incredible positive force at our company. So, if there's one thing I want you to walk away from this presentation knowing and understanding, is that AI is the greatest accelerator for creation we've ever seen in tech. There's been a lot of tech that's advanced other fields, other areas, but this is enabling creators to move faster, to iterate faster, to refine their ideas faster, and to do it with less deep technical skill, but more focus on the spark of genius that they have in their heads and the thing they want to bring to life. And that's true across the industry, and it's especially true on a platform like Roblox that is at its heart a creation platform. So remember that, one key thing. And then if there's a second thing I want you to remember, and I promise there's only two things. You can go to sleep right after this slide. But if there's a second thing I want you to remember, it's that Roblox is uniquely positioned to benefit from this new technology. And that's for a few reasons. Of course, we're a creator platform, so everything I said before applies doubly to Roblox. But at Roblox, we have some incredible data sets. They're unique to Roblox, and they enable us to take advantage of this technology in some incredible ways. These are things like our social graph, which you heard from Manuel and others, is growing rapidly. All the voice that we are capturing on the platform as people communicate. One of the largest collections of functional 3D objects on the planet. And when I say functional, I mean we don't just have images or 3D images. These have to be working items. A house in Roblox has doors and windows and rooms. A car drives and has moving wheels. Our ability to learn from that and build models from that is an incredible benefit for the company. And then, of course, all the code that people have written to bring experiences to life on the platform. And the second reason we're so in such a great place with this technology is because we actually have control of our entire stack. Core to Roblox has been the fact that we're basically a cloud provider under the covers, and we've carefully managed how we build that infrastructure out across everything we deploy. This is doubly true for AI, where we have the ability to deploy on an end client device, at our edge, in our data center or on third-party cloud, and we get to pick where we deploy based on what we need for the user and the total cost of ownership as we look at the solution across the board. So keeping those two facts in mind, this is how I'm going to take you through this. I'm going to start with some things we've been doing for a while in AI, just to show you our roots and where we're coming from and how we think about these sorts of problems. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the newest stuff we've launched, some of the highlights from RDC. It shows you where we're kind of at right now and some of our first deployments of generative and large language models and all the new tech that's appearing in AI right now. And then I'm going to give you a brief sneak peek into what the future might look like and some of our ambitious goals going forward with this tech. So let's jump right in with that. And where we started, safety and moderation. So in its earliest days, I think safety and moderation on the platform was Dave and Eric, kind of watching what was going on and like getting people to behave. That clearly doesn't scale. Dave works really hard, but I don't think he can handle 70 million DAO and watching everything they're saying, right? So you got to bring automation to this. And that's where we started with AI. And text filters are a great example that we use this across the board. We need awesome text filters that can understand what people are saying in context and block things out when not appropriate. When we started here, we started using industry standard tools. The problem with those industry standard tools is they didn't know Roblox. So for example, you could have a number on the system, and if you want to prevent exchange of personally identifiable information, then you would want to block that number. But saying your phone number versus saying, hey, I want 2 apples off the tree, that 2 should still show up. So by building our own models, we were able to dramatically improve the quality and accuracy of our moderation. Nothing's less fun than being moderated when you shouldn't be, right? And we're able to do it efficiently and at better total cost of ownership. You've heard a lot about recommendations and personalization. This is something every content platform has to do. When you have millions of creators, you need to be able to bring the right content to them at the right time. What's really interesting on Roblox, though, again, comes down to our data. We have these long plays in our experiences. It means we also have signals like your social graph. We also know things like what sort of device you're going to run on. And we know some experiences run better on a low-end device, others really sing on a high-end device, and we can bring that in the recommendation. We take into account things like the efficient frontier. Allows us to customize personalization specifically for Roblox. This has been going really well this year. I think you've seen some of the results directly as our business has grown. And then translation. You also heard so much about how important translation was to us. This is another great example where using our own data set made a huge difference. We've been using industry standard tools for a while for automatic translation for our creators. So they don't have to go hire a translation team. A team of 1 or 2 can't do that. Think about the creators of Blade Ball. They're not going to go hire a full-on Japanese translation team, for example. We provide this automatic translation. As we move from industry standard tools to using our own data sets, quality jumped dramatically, and you can see that in some of our growth numbers internationally. Okay, we're going to get some more recent stuff and what I think is a little bit more fun stuff, right? We're going to talk about avatar expression. This is key to Roblox Connect. And the idea here is we're capturing your image on your camera, on your device, and we're using that to animate your avatar. But we're doing that using an AI model and some really cool technology. I'm going to walk you through that. So here we have Kiran Bhatt from our AI team. His image is being captured on his camera. But then what's going on is he has an AI model running on his phone that's picking these distinct points off his face. And they pick the same distinct points off my face or yours. It's those points, not the video, that is transmitted up to our cloud and back down to everyone else in the experience, and allows it to animate any compliant avatar. So Kiran could be animating this avatar, maybe one that looks much more like him, or a space alien. It doesn't matter which. This carries over across the whole platform. There's some cool advantages to this. First, we're not sending up a ton of video. That's very expensive to compute. It's a ton of bandwidth, and we have no need for it. So we only send this core data. Secondly, it's privacy preserving. We're not sending the video. Video has a lot more personal context in it than setting up some facial expressions. And then the third really cool thing, and this goes to how we think about total cost of ownership and user experience, we can deploy different models based on the device the user is on. So if you're on a lower-end Android, you might have a slightly lower-powered device that uses less CPU or less memory, but at the same time gives you a pretty good experience. And then on a high-end gaming PC, we could send down like a really rich model. In all cases, we're not having to do the computation for that AI at all. In last March, we also launched our first foray into true generative AI. These were like our first experiments, and they're coming along incredibly nicely. The two products was a material generator, which allowed you to create these really awesome, unique materials called PBR materials, or physically based rendering materials. Now, PBR materials look really slick. You can see the glint off this car here. It gets more metallic. You can do a lot more with light, but they require a lot of technical expertise to build. And this goes back to what I was saying before. Let's get the technical hurdles out of the way of a creator and go with just their idea. Let that spark of genius be what drives them. And that's exactly what we do with PBR materials. The result is we have increased by over 50% the number of folks building or using PBR materials on the platform. We also built Code Assist. So Code Assist is exactly what it sounds like. It helps you code faster. And we've seen there some incredible results where we double the amount of code the people using that solution are generating. I'm going to walk you through some examples here. So here we're going to use a text prompt and tell it we want this green metallic car, and it immediately codes it that way. We're going to move to a diamond metallic as well. You see how easy it is to build this out and change the material. Something that looks really realistic and awesome. We then can also build some code by giving some English text prompts about how we want the lights to flash and be operated, and it just generates the code on the side. And we can even take that a step further and talk about the world and say, hey, I want it to rain. Here's the behavior I want for the rain. You can kind of see the rain. It's hard on a distance on the screen, but it starts raining in the world. Again, generating all this code from just a few English text prompts. And the great thing is all these tools also then produce those assets. So if you want to start here as a creator, you want to iterate, but then you want to come in and fine-tune it, you have all the assets you need to do. You've lost no control of the system. Okay, so those are some of the things we've already launched. I'm now going to talk about some of the things we either just launched or in the process of launching. A lot of this has been discussed at RDC, so if you tuned in there, some of this will be repeat. But I wanted to grab some of the highlights to show you where this technology is heading for us. Okay, so this kind of solves the mystery that Manuel put out before about who was using strong language in a one-on-one conversation. So this is ROBLOX Office, and this is a snapshot of Dave's screen here. You can see his selfie up there. He's got to learn the CTO knows everything that's going on in this company, right? But anyway, so Dave got this prompt, and I want to explain what's going on behind the covers, though. When we first stepped into voice last year, we're like, we need to be able to moderate at scale. We first were wondering, can we just use like abuse reports? Will people behave civilly? We realized voice is a tech where kind of one person not behaving the right way encourages others not to. And we needed to really have an incredible solution for real-time moderation. The challenge was no one had ever built one of these before. There were no prior art or examples of real-time voice moderation that we could find anywhere. So we set out to build the first real-time voice moderation at scale in the world. And we did this in an incredibly interesting way. The state of the art, if you looked at academic papers, the way they were doing it was take voice, turn that into text, put text through a filter, right? And we knew that would, one, be very slow. Going through all those different steps meant you would not be real time. And secondly, you'd be in a position where it's extremely expensive. There's a lot of compute required to run all those steps. Third, you lose some really important information. We all know this. Tone of voice can dictate so much about what you're trying to express and how you're trying to express it. And if you do that translation 2 steps, you're not going to get there. So we sat down, we started with large language models, we used them to distill down an incredibly efficient classification system that runs in real time against a voice stream, and when necessary can let Dave know he needs to chill out a little bit. Right? What's also great, as we deployed this with this sort of notification. And what's awesome about this notification, we've seen it changes behavior on the platform. We have an incredible number of users get one notification, and as best we can tell, their behavior changes for life on the platform. They go, oh, this is what the rules of governance are on this platform. This is what's civil, so this is now how I'm going to behave. So it actually decreases the moderation problem in some way and makes it gives us a much better, more civil environment overall on the platform. I'm hoping that prompt worked with Dave, and he learns and he starts to moderate his language in his one-on-ones. It'd be a real shame if we had to ban him off the platform. Okay, another great piece of tech that we're going to launch over the next few months is this idea of how do you create an awesome, super cool avatar. And this example, I was the guinea pig for this. We're taking a photo and we're turning it into a working avatar head on Roblox. We do this in 3 stages. We start with a 2D image, and we take my photo, and we turn it into, as you can see here, just a 2D kind of creation to represent the style I want on the platform. And we can tweak that with text prompts. By the way, in the mix here is a system called ControlNet. It's kind of state-of-the-art in the industry, and we're really privileged that Manish Agarwala, who's the creator of ControlNet, is a visiting researcher at Roblox. The next step is we take that 2D head and we turn it into a 3D kind of image head. And we have to do a bunch of AI there as well to kind of create what you see over there with images from different sides. And then the last step, and this is so important in the way Roblox is going to approach AI and 3D creation, we have to turn into something that works on Roblox. So you can see here that 3D head actually does all that stuff Kieran was showing you before, where the mouth moves, the eyebrows move, et cetera. It's expressive. You can turn it. That's so important for anything on Roblox. We don't stop at 3D. It's got to be functional. Another cool thing about this design is we can run these 3 different parts of the pipeline in different places based on where it makes the most sense. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, how we're going to distribute that out. Now, last June, there was a Morgan Stanley event I presented at. Some of you may have seen this, where we talked about an early technology we were calling Helix. And Helix is a conversational AI on top of Roblox Studio. We've been working on it actively. We're getting much closer to a product version of this, and we're going to be releasing this in component parts over the course of the next few months. So again, you're going to be in Studio, and you're able to have a conversation with Roblox Studio to help you build a place. I'm going to walk you through some examples there. So here I'm going to say, you won't be able to read the prompt, so I'll tell you what's going on. I want to build a campfire game. Is it going? Nope. Let's go back. OK, let's try this again. A campfire game where I'm going to gather wood and so on. This may not. Let me see if I can get it one more time. There we go. OK, now it's running. You'll see in a sec. So we're going to ask it to build this kind of campfire experience. Let's let that pop up. There we go. OK, great. And now we're going to say we want to build a woods around this. So Roblox Studio goes in the creator catalog and pulls out some trees and places them around our world, our place. And we can see they're kind of nicely laid out by Roblox Assistant. And then from there, I say, wait, I want some more variety. So change up the trees a bit. It's going to put in some birches and dead trees instead of that one style of tree. And I kind of have a really great setting almost instantly just by talking to Roblox Assistant here. But I can go a step further. I want to customize it more. Let's say it's Halloween. I say, I want to make this spooky. So I ask Roblox Assistant to make it spooky. It changes the lighting. It adds some fog in. You can't see it here, but it put a nice big moon in the sky with a skybox there. I then want to add some Halloween-appropriate prompts. It goes and adds some gravestones, some jack-o'-lanterns. We're going to bring a crypt in as well. And all these assets then, again, can be modified by the user. So that in case the user's saying, well, I don't like what the crypt was, I'll move it over here. I'm going to grab some more things from the creator marketplace and bring them into place, some skeletons and so on. Again, you get a perfect combination, be able to move quickly, be able to iterate quickly, but complete control over what you're doing. So this is going to integrate with everything we're doing around our docs, with AI, with code and AI materials, and then bring in eventually scene building, as you see here. OK. So that's some of the things we've been launching lately. I want to, with the minutes I have left here, just give you a sneak peek as to where we're going. And where we're going centers around a really ambitious project to build our own foundational model, our own large model, but a model that is based on some of the really unique data that we have on the platform. And that's why we're driving towards this. This is not a glamour project. It's what the open source community in the world's doing is kind of stopping at certain sorts of formats that aren't the ones we have on our platform. There might be text, there might be photos, and so on. We have some really unique capabilities, as I mentioned before. We have all that voice we're collecting. We have all that safety data we're collecting. We have a huge collection of functional 3D objects. We have over 5 billion hours each month of user behavior on the platform that tell us how avatars in a virtual world might move, might look, might express, might converse. We're going to bring all of that together into our own large foundational model and use that to drive kind of the next set of innovation here. So I want to step you through just a concept car of what that innovation might look like. None of this is running code. It's not shipping product. It's not even close. But I want to show you where we're headed with this. So first is very similar to what I showed you with Roblox Assistant around scene creation, but with one big difference. Everything's going to be created generatively. There's not going to be going into the creator catalog and finding existing assets. I'm going to say, build me a city scene, and it's going to build buildings for me. And I could then go and change the prompt, say, give me a city scene set in the 1820s, or set in the 1720s, or maybe set in ancient, right? And it can generate that idea for me from the 3D generative models that we're going to build. And then I can go a step further. This is where it starts to get kind of crazy. I can also populate this world with animated characters, what in the gaming industry are called NPCs, or non-player characters. Because I have all that behavior to train on about how avatars move and converse and express, I can bring that to bear in a large language model. And I can use that to create what we're thinking of as non-player character as a service, where we can create as many of these as we want, and they can run in your experience and just bring immediate richness to the entire experience. We can take that concept, that technology, and go one step further to what we're calling a personalized virtual proxy. Think in Roblox Connect. You call me, but I'm not online. I'm not available. You could actually get an avatar who can, using large language type technology, generative technology, can maybe take a message, check in on my calendar, maybe text me if it's really urgent, but it can be trained with what's called few-shot learning. In other words, a small amount of data from me on top of our general models to behave like me, to have my facial expressions, to use speech patterns the way I would. It's a really deep experience, and up until recently, this has been like pure sci-fi, and we're not that far away from being able to do this. To do all this, though, we want to do it responsibly and efficiently. So how are we doing that? I want to first talk about training, and then I want to talk about inference. So training is the part of the AI process where you're building these models. And the way we're approaching this is we're starting with open source models, which are awesome. The open source community is incredibly dynamic, and in some cases, we're contributing to that. Like StarCoder is a model where one of the leaders is working with Roblox research today. So we've been integrally involved in this. But then we're taking our new unique data and putting it on top of that. And as you've heard in this presentation, every time we do that, we find we end up with a better result. So it can be a model like StarCoder, which is helping us with code assist, getting that to the point where it's better than what we can do with GPT. With voice safety, I said we started with WaveLM and Whisper, which are big open source models around voice. We've refined that down, though, to something that can run incredibly efficiently and does a far better job than the open source models on their own. So we can use open source as a base layer, support that community, but then bring our data to bear on that and end up with an incredible result without having to spend all the cost of doing the training from scratch ourselves. The other half of the equation is what's called inference. And for those who aren't aware, that's simply when I have a request to an AI model, giving it to it and getting results. And this is very important for any platform at scale. At 70 million daily active users, we need to be very efficient in how we do inference. Most tech organizations will do all their inference on GPUs sitting on a third-party cloud, and that gets very expensive. I'm sure you've seen readouts from a lot of companies as these costs balloon. It's not an efficient way to run the platform. We have control from our client to our data center, on whether we run on GPUs or CPUs, and we're using that actively. So some examples. I showed you with Kiran before, facial animation runs entirely on a CPU on the end client device. It's not a cost that directly hits our data infrastructure. At the same time, voice moderation recommendations, we run entirely on CPU in our data centers, and we're moving towards the point where we'll be able to use spare capacity. Let's say when Japan's asleep, we can use data centers in Asia and better utilize our CPUs in that sort of direction. And then there's examples like I showed you with photo to avatar. If you recall, I showed you 3 distinct stages for photo to avatar. Our plan at this point is we'll be able to run the expensive 2D generation on the local device, and then probably run those other 2 stages where we convert it to 3D, and 3D gets functional on Roblox on our edge data centers. But we can vary that, again, based on whatever gives us the best user experience and total cost of ownership. I've shown you a bunch of examples in this talk. We only had about 20 minutes. There were many, many more things I could talk about. We have an incredible number of AI projects in the company. They're touching pretty much every part of engineering and product we're building because it is so applicable, whether it is behind the scenes with things like moderation or right in front of our creators or users, letting them build things they never imagined they could build incredibly quickly. So with that, just some takeaways. Again, AI is the greatest creation accelerator that we've ever seen. And secondly, Roblox is so well positioned to be able to take advantage of this tech. It meshes beautifully into our long-term plans. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, learned a little bit about AI. Mike's going to be up here next, or maybe it's just a virtual simulation of Mike. You don't know. And with that, thank you very much.
Please put your hands together for Chief Financial Officer Mike Guthrie.
Good morning.
Please put your hands together for Chief Financial Officer Mike Guthrie.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to be here. It's great to see everybody. So all I have to do is model everything you've seen this morning and then give you guidance on it. Piece of cake. All right. We start off almost all of our financial presentations basically the same way. We think there's 3 core drivers of value, almost no matter what's going on in the world, what's happening in the markets. We focus on scale, growth, and cash flow. The bigger the business, the more valuable, the faster it's growing, the more valuable, and the better ability to generate cash, we think the more valuable the company. So we focus on these things all the time. Based on what we said on the last earnings call, or what I said on the last earnings call about Q4, we will have our first $1 billion bookings quarter. That's a scale number. Not many companies get to that level. We're very excited about that. Also, we revealed last quarter we're 3 quarters in a row of 20% growth. Not many companies are doing that right now. We feel incredibly excited about our ability to grow. And I think the thing that was maybe most exciting to most investors was the cash. It was the margins that we're generating and the ability to turn those margins into cash flow. There are really 3 things going on with this last item that all are really working together. One is operating leverage. We've made a lot of investments, obviously, in infrastructure and in our headcount. But getting operating leverage drives up the margins of the business. And now that we're through a fairly substantial infrastructure investment, cash conversion goes up. And so those things work together. And number 3, as you heard earlier, and we're going to talk more about, we now have a new revenue stream coming into the business. Those 3 things work together to help us generate a lot of cash flow. So we're excited about the year that we've had. We're super excited about the year ahead of us. Just to go back and look at Q3, it was the quarter of 20% growth on bookings to just over $800 million of bookings in Q3. We crested 70 million daily active users for the first time, which is a big milestone for us. That was 20% growth. We'd never had 15 billion hours in a quarter. We went to 16 billion in Q3. That also grew at 20% year over year. We're incredibly liquid. The balance sheet of the company is incredibly strong. We have $2 billion of net liquidity, $81 million of covenant adjusted EBITDA. That was a much higher number than we had delivered in Q2 and even last year in Q3. And then over $113 million of operating cash flow. So again, we're starting to see the margins come into the business, and also with less capital expenditures, more free cash flow. So we're really building from strength right now. Over the last few years, we've been through this unbelievable cycle where COVID doubled the business almost overnight, step function in our growth. We've maintained our size and scale, our user base, engagement, monetization through the reopening. And we've now returned to really significant growth. And we feel as though we're quite honestly building from a position where the assets in the business have just never been better and never been stronger. We have more engineering and product capacity than we've ever had before. More brilliant people who can build great stuff, turn it over to an amazing creator community, and build better and better content, more engaging content. We also have more infrastructure than we've ever had before. It's more reliable, and it's more performant. And that just yields a better experience for everybody. And the really exciting part is we're starting to expand the economy. It's taken us a long time to build a fantastic user base. We have a huge monetization engine in our virtual economy, and now we're getting ready to layer in a couple of really exciting things with advertising, with brands, and ultimately with real-world commerce. So the assets are wonderful. We feel like we're really playing from strength right now. I say this all the time when I talk to investors. Go back and look at our user numbers. Go to the supplemental materials that we publish on our IR website every quarter, and you'll see we just continue to grow daily active users quarter after quarter after quarter. Similarly, we continue to grow engagement on the platform, which is why you see hours of engagement growing at that rate. And it's not just the overall growth that's exciting, it's really where it's coming from. Older users are growing faster. We talked about all ages. And then the growth in international has been particularly fantastic. It's not that we're not still growing in the US and Canada, because we are at fairly high rates, especially among the older users. But we really have become a global phenomenon. And the growth that we've seen in places like Germany, Western Europe in general, East Asia in general, have really been fantastic, and just points to what we can do with global growth in the next few years. So this has been bookings over the last 4 years. I like to go back and open the aperture so we can look at the history of the growth in the company. Way back in 2019, we were doing about 140 million of bookings, feeling really good about our ability to continue to grow the business. We did a $250 million bookings quarter in Q1 of 2020, and then within 90 days, the business doubled to about 500 million of bookings. And this is where the investments really started, as you have seen in different presentations, and I'll go into more depth on. We did not take the growth for granted. We actually looked at it and said, we have so much work to do. We have to build a platform that more older users will actually engage with. We have to build an infrastructure that is performant, that can actually stand up to the number of users and the number of hours of engagement that we have. So we invested aggressively during this time. We really, really proved that we could retain the users on the platform and build and grow on top of that. And so we had very small periods of time where the business flattened as we were all coming out of COVID, and then it just continued to grow. We've had 5 quarters in a row of double-digit growth, and as I said earlier, 3 quarters where we've grown at over 20%. Not many companies can say that. We're super proud of that. It speaks to the stickiness of the platform. It speaks to the incredible high quality of the content from this ever-growing community of developers that we have around the world. And this is the investment cycle. This is quantifying that investment cycle. We have increased the product and engineering organization materially. We've spent almost $700 million on infrastructure. And by the way, while we were doing that, as the company was growing very, very rapidly, these investments happen, we maintain cash neutrality. The unit economics, the underlying unit economics of this business are fantastic. You've all heard me say that before, and really prove that during the investment cycle where we didn't go through any cash. We ran the business almost to the dollar at cash flow neutral. And now that we're through the investment cycle, as I said earlier, we have both the operating leverage and the reduction in capital expenditures, plus the incremental top line that's going to come from brands that really will allow us to convert that into high cash. So these are the expenses underlying the bookings growth that we talked about. It really is the fixed cost of the business that you should focus on in terms of operating leverage. That's the question we get all the time. Why did margins go from less than 5% in Q2 to just about 10% in Q3? It's really the focus on fixed costs. And the fixed costs in our business are people, and it's the infrastructure. And during our scale up, you can see the rate of growth of those expenses really ticked up. But as we got closer and closer to these 20% growth quarters, we've started to slow the rate of growth down. We haven't stopped hiring. We haven't stopped building great infrastructure, but we've slowed that down. And now we can much more carefully, as we operate, and we talked about operations earlier, we can actually grow those things in relation to a top line growth number that allows us to spread that out and increase the margins of the business. We will continue, our variable costs are really around cost of goods sold, where we will seek efficiencies where we can get them, and then our developer community, where we're always looking for ways to invest even more of the economics of the business with our community. Because we've always found that when we do that, creation goes up, creativity goes up, better content happens, that drives into more users, more engagement. It's always been good for the business, so we'll continue to do that year after year after year. And this is really the sort of the graph that really shows what we've come through. We've gone through the infrastructure investment in the business, and what's in front of us, we now have the capacity that we need to really drive the business and its growth, certainly through 2024, possibly pretty far into 2025. This is what you've gone through with us over the last couple of years, the $700 million roughly of capital expenditures. But going forward in 24, that number will be under $100 million next year. And then we've got a little bit of incremental spend that we'll do next year on our new campus in San Mateo. We are still growing. Our employees are back in the office. It's fantastic to be back working with everybody in the office. And we have to build out some real estate to house everybody. But next year will be a relatively light CapEx year, leading to really good high cash flow conversion. And the really exciting part with any business like this is just more revenue, expanding the economy. We now, over the last 12 months, have about a $3.3 billion virtual economy. That's growing, as you know, at about 20%. That's an absolutely incredible asset. It's built on top of 70 million daily active users and an ever-growing creator community. But now in 2024, we're ready to launch into the advertising economy. We have revenue both in Q3 of this year and of Q4 from the brands, from ads. They're going to scale up over the course of 2024. We're always going to feel good about the back half of the year and back-end loading, but we've seen the proof and the evidence in Q3 and Q4, and we're really excited about that. Sometime during 2024, we'll also start making key investments to enable the shopping economy in 2025. Put those two things together, we think we have a really massive opportunity on our hands. We already monetize incredibly well. A daily active user on Roblox is worth $51 on an LTM basis. You guys cover a lot of companies in social, internet, gaming, and whatever. These are really strong numbers. So we have a very, very strong base to build monetization on top of. But what's really, really interesting, and you've heard us talk about some of these data points before, is that all those paying users are basically spending are within about 20% of the hours on our platform. Said another way, about 80% of the hours don't monetize. About 80% of our hours today don't monetize. We have costs associated with them, but we don't actually drive revenue from them. This is where obviously the opportunity is for brands and for our community, because they have experiences where they have hours that aren't monetizing. They're going to have a big incentive to drive the ad business and the commerce business, and it's great for us. because we actually are increasingly efficient. And if we can make the business work on a very small number of the hours as well as we do, we really have a fantastic opportunity when we start monetizing a lot of those hours today, which really are lying fallow. So I get this question all the time, and I've seen it written in some of the reports leading up to today. Can Roblox build $1 billion business with brands? And I think the easiest way to answer it is we have a user base in Gen Z that spends hundreds of billions of dollars in spending power. Obviously, brands are spending tens of billions of dollars to reach that audience. So it stands to reason that if you can build a compelling value proposition for those brands to reach those users, of course you can build a very large business. That's not really difficult to figure out. In the first couple of years, it'll always be hard to forecast something like that. But we're going to learn and we're going to figure it out. And ultimately, we'll start giving guidance on that number as well as what you see today. What is totally logical about the approach, though, today is that on the left, and this was Christina's slide, you see really a budget for a chief marketing officer at a key brand. They can typically split their budgets up into 3 pieces. They have a very tiny experimental budget, things that they're just testing. Let's see if they work. That's where we live today. We're in those experimental budgets for the brands that are, in fact, advertising on the platform. As we go down into the bigger budgets, into brand awareness and that intent, then really we're starting to look at return. What kind of things can we measure that indicate that this is actually having value? And you're going to start seeing with video ads in particular, these are things that CMOs are used to spending on. And if they can spend on that on Roblox, then we're going to start moving deeper into those budgets. That's going to happen in 2024. We'll still tap into experimental budgets during the course of the year, but we'll be growing the size and scale of the economic opportunity with brands as we push into video ads and more into portals. And then ultimately what we all know is if we could tag something to a transaction, of course, a marketer is going to pay more for that. That's what they really want to do. They want to be able to measure response in a really economic way. We've shown a lot of things today that indicate that we think this platform is going to be absolutely fantastic when it comes to real world commerce. It's all very logical. Now we have to go out and execute. And we believe we actually have the right people, the right technologies, and 3D immersive, as you see on Roblox, just recognize that the creativity that we're going to unlock in marketers around the world with really incredible brands, we haven't even begun to imagine some of the things that they're going to do with our technology and with our audience. So we're really excited about that. So over the next few years, as we go beyond, we'll literally be tapping into all those budgets and growing the business. So we're super excited. And yes, obviously this can be a business that crests $1 billion. So I haven't looked at any notes until right now, but my last piece, I'm going to read this directly because this has been something we've talked about doing, and it's a really interesting chapter for Roblox. And so I'll just go in. As we mentioned on our earnings call last week, beginning in 2024, we intend to begin providing financial guidance, which is something we have not done in the past, as you all know. Last week, we highlighted that we are comfortable with FactSet's mean consensus estimates for Q4 of 2023 as of November 7th. On our Q4 earnings call next February, we will provide guidance for the full fiscal year 2024 and for Q1 of 2024. Based on FactSet, as of November 12th, the mean consensus for fiscal 2024 is as follows. Bookings of $4.03 billion, adjusted EBITDA of $489.9 million, which correlates to our calculation of covenant adjusted EBITDA, and revenue of Hey guys, I need the notes back. So scroll up. Okay, perfect. We're comfortable with these mean consensus figures for revenue, bookings, and adjusted EBITDA for fiscal 2024. Further, we expect that infrastructure-related capital expenditures for 2024 will not exceed $100 million, and we expect to spend approximately $80 million on tenant improvements on our new campus in San Mateo, and we expect share dilution will be in the range of 3 to 4%. Given that we will talk specifically about 2024 in February, we want to give a high-level view of future growth and margins today. Between 2025 and 2027, we are targeting annual bookings growth of 20% plus. We will do this by continuing to grow our user base both across all ages and internationally. We will also introduce product changes that make Roblox more of an everyday experience than it is currently. We also believe that our brand business will contribute with increasing significance to monetization over that time frame. Finally, our goal is to drive margins up by 100 to 300 basis points each year over the next 3 to 5 years. We look forward to providing more detailed guidance on our next earnings call, and thank you for your time.
Please welcome our speakers back on stage for a Q&A panel.
All right, hey, welcome, and thank you, team. Wonderful job, appreciate it. Thank you for all of your attention and listening. So we are going to open it up. I do want to share one final anecdote. It's almost related to the fun of running Roblox, because that anecdote of what happened in Roblox office in the future, we're actually going to start creating an environment where we as a company are going to have to decide, will we run our Roblox office as a 17 up experience where everyone has a photo ID, where we would allow that, or maybe not. And so it's actually fun to think this foretells the future of various levels of privacy, and we'll be engaged in that discussion. But it was one of the most serendipitous, awesome moments I ever had on Roblox, is seeing our safety system in action, and it was really wonderful. With that, we are going to open it up for questions, and love to hear what you're thinking and how we can help you. And raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you.
Great. Hi everyone. Thanks for taking the question. Matt Costin, Morgan Stanley. Two, if I could, I guess just probably starting with Mike. On the 20% plus growth target over the next few years, how much does that depend on success in ads and shopping? You know, you've talked a lot about that today. Are you baking in an expectation of, you know, really scaling those businesses, or are they sort of, you know, a positive on top of it? And the second one would be for Christina. You mentioned bringing in some third-party ad partners on the demand aggregation side and the verification side. Longer term, what does it make sense for Roblox to do for the advertising business versus which parts of the value chain for advertising do you work with partners for? Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So just to clarify, what I said was comfort with 24 consensus for bookings, and then I said 25 to 27. So that's the 3 years after that at 20% plus. Our business in 24, really parts of 23, 24 are brands plus the virtual economy. So any numbers that we give are going to include both from now on, going forward. Over time, we'll expect to be able to give more direct guidance about how ads and brands are scaling. For now, it's all really, together in any numbers that we're giving. But over time, we'll expect to have, a little more granularity about how that business is moving forward.
Yeah, I'll take the next question. Thank you for the question. We are meeting with a lot of different partners right now and figuring out who we want to move forward with. If you think about our advertising business, it's just like everything else. We want it to be thoughtful. We want it to be high quality. And so we want to make sure we partner with the right partners there. But it's not just the third parties that we're working with for DSPs. It's really about agencies as well. And it's about brands directly. So we want to work with all of them and where the market is.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Tom Champion from Piper Sandler. Dave, I'd just like to hear from you talk about, you listed a number of things today, whether it be communication or even aging up or AI or international expansion. What are the one or two things you're most excited about and you think will be impactful to the P&L over the next couple years? And maybe one for Mike too. Mike, if you could just discuss how the P&L will evolve with advertising coming online and shopping coming online. How should we think about that as bookings or revenue? If you could just editorialize there, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll share kind of an orthogonal thought on that. And when I demo Roblox on mobile to other people in the industry at other social companies or whatever, engineers, one of the things they constantly comment on is, oh my gosh, how quickly can I get in that experience? Or, oh my gosh, is this running on a phone? So my boring answer would be raw engineering perfection, performance, quality, stability, join time. Which is something we don't actually think about a lot, but what 3 or 4 of our main groups, a platform group, engine group, creator group, are hardcore going to be working on. And one can imagine a future where joining a Roblox experience is photorealistic in 1/10 of a second. That's actually an enormous achievement. So that'd be a fun, non-obvious one.
Tom, on the P&L, so ad revenue will be revenue. It'll also, we'll think of it as bookings as well. It's just effectively instantaneously becomes revenue in the business because we don't have the same performance obligation as we bill for it. It will not require, if you keep going down the P&L, it will not require massive increases in costs. Ultimately, we have a team that will be out there, working hard with advertisers. So there's some incremental costs on driving transactions, but generally between headcount and infrastructure, it provides just a lot more leverage on any fixed cost. It just absorbs those fixed costs. And so as it grows and grows faster, that will ultimately produce margin and cash flow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey guys, Omar Desoki from B of A. So I might have to quit my job and start a Roblox studio. I might be able to make more money that way. So I wanted you to help me maybe bridge the gap between where Roblox is now and how big Roblox could be by the end of the decade. So Adobe, the software company, recently estimated there to be over 300 million creators worldwide across such disciplines as photography, filmmaking, podcasting. And about 60 million of those seem to do some kind of game or 3D experience development. And if you look at YouTube and Adobe Creative Cloud as example creator platforms, they have about 60 and 30 million creators each, whereas Roblox is still early in its adoption cycle, with I think about 4 million creators at the end of last year. Right? So that's the preface to the question. What is the potential size of the Roblox creator community by the end of the decade, in your opinion? You know, you have 70 million daily active users now. You know, do you foresee that, for example, a majority of those could eventually become Roblox creators? You know, do you expect creator tool adoption by your users to happen organically over time, or do you have to do stuff to accelerate that? And I'll have one.
I feel we shared some pieces of this puzzle that one could assemble. So Mike shared 25 through 27 growth in the 20% plus range. Dan shared a vision of AI creation powered by AI. Manuel shared a review of some of the things we've done, and I shared that the future is really every experience on Roblox supports creation and AI. So my view would be by the end of the decade, we consider every single user on Roblox a creator, and the creator is profoundly integrated in things as far as your wardrobe, what you're wearing, the creation of your clothing, the creation of those assets, where I think the majority of people on our platform will be at the very least creating new and unique aspects of their avatar, what they wear and beyond. And I also think the creator community for experience or model or 3D asset creation will be radically expanded, but I think every user will be a creator. And anyone else want to add on that?
I could just chime in. I didn't dwell out on my talk, but to what Dave's saying, this vision of every user is a creator, that's exactly where a lot of this AI tech drives it, where you could start building entire worlds within worlds because you don't necessarily need to have a full-on studio to be doing creation, but you could build things that are awesome and could be monetized. So just back in what Dave's saying, we went very fast this morning, but there's a whole thought process behind like the difference between creator and a daily active user starts to blur.
Yeah, and I think that's really an optimistic vision of the future. I think for the actual creation of the experiences that power Roblox today and the experiences that power the avatar assets, I think even if our creator community were to grow pro rata with that user, we would have more than enough creative energy. So this is almost optimistic creation on top of that which will fuel us.
So then that begs the next question, which is, you know, creators turning their hobbies into jobs. And at the end of 22, out of those 4.2 million creators, I think you said that 11,000 of them qualified for DevX. So kind of thinking that ratio is like 1/2 of 1%, you know, of creators that seem to generate revenue generating experiences and objects. Do you expect that kind of ratio to hold as the decade continues, or you know, will it become a larger percentage of?
I think the slide that Manuel presented showed more growth at 1,000 than at 100, and I think you know the overall income of those creators will grow with our economy as we imagine Roblox scaling bookings in the ways that Mike shared. That revenue will flow to those creators as well. So those are once again two hints to the puzzle: bookings growth along with fast growth in the longer tail of the creators.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for taking my questions. I actually had just have a handful of housekeeping questions. On the 20% of the hours that are monetized, could you give us a little history of what that's trended? Where do you think that goes? Secondly, Mike, could you talk about the gross margins of the ad business? Presumably there's no platform fees on that, so it should have a much higher gross margin. Should the DevX be higher there? How should we think about that? And then lastly, on the direct response, when you eventually get, when you get down to the shopping or direct response sort of ads, are you going to allow users to leave the platform or have ads that allow you to leave the platform, or will everything kind of just be encompassed within Roblox? Thank you.
So do you want to talk about the last one first?
I'd just say there's a lot of lovely patterns emerging. You know, you go through the market of Insta, Snap, TikTok, Pinterest, you know, the line goes on, and you can see an continuing more embedding, more immersion type things as opposed to pop-out. I think obviously whatever we would do would be best practice.
Your first question was translate the 80/20 of hours into prior periods. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't actually have the figures. We have usually looked at it based on a monetization ratio of payers to users, but for a variety of reasons, we like we like to look at it this way as well. I suspect that it's been lower, you know, probably in 2019 and expanded, and I'll bet it's been in this 80/20 range over the last couple of years, but we'll have to go back and look specifically to give you the best answer. Remind me of your second question.
Platform fees.
Oh, gross margins will be higher, yeah. And then, of course, we want developers to participate. We have not shared what those economics will look like yet, but yeah, it's a very accretive business.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for taking my questions. Andrew Merrick from Raymond James. You talked a lot about bringing generative AI tech to bear for creators and the promise that that holds. I guess, how are Roblox's engineers benefiting from generative AI tech in terms of the pace of product development and innovation and maximizing output of your engineering teams? And I guess for Mike, what's kind of baked into the assumptions for guidance, et cetera, in terms of the shape of the curve for the pace of product?
Do you want to take the first part?
Engineering.
So, you know, I think it's still early on overall engineering tools and the productivity there, but we are definitely seeing, you know, code assist tools assist our engineers in the same way we're seeing on the platform. And we're still early days, and I don't have numbers to share on that or a strong view, but it certainly helps. The other thing it also kind of helps on is sometimes when you're doing something through an AI model, you're not having to build a huge lump of very complex code with all sorts of special cases in it, so it can simplify portions of the code base as well. Like think about a recommendation system that was older, right? And like how special case that was, and you could break it easily and all that. And like here we just have a model, we have a process around a model, we do that well. We're investing a lot in an internal ML platform that is helping speed all that up as well.
On the question on margins, let me take a shot at how I think about the different cost items and how it drives margin, and see if I've gotten to your answer you were looking for. Today, our COGS and our developer exchange I think of as more variable, and together they're about 43% of the bookings number in a given quarter. So let's make an assumption for now that that number stays steady, but that it's less in COGS and more to the developers. But just for now, hold the combined numbers steady. Headcount as a percentage of bookings right now is about 23%. Infra, trust, and safety is about 14%. Those two numbers, I believe, over the next 4 or 5 years, will move more towards infra, trust, and safety being more closer to 10, and headcount from 23 into the 20 range. So if you're doing the quick math, that's about 7% on bookings. Assume that this year, based on the things that we've said about Q4 and what we've already done in the first 3 quarters, so adding those numbers up, the other number would be just what we call overhead. That's right now sitting at around 10%. It's a little bit elevated because of just rent. We'll try to push very hard over the next few years to get that down to about 8 or 7%. So if I add back the headcount savings as a percentage, infra savings, and overhead, I think that's about 9 percentage points on top of what we have today. Is that okay? Thanks.
Good question. Thanks.
And there, yeah.
Hi, Jonathan Keys, Dialogue Capital Markets. Great event. Thanks for putting this on. Mike, great. Really appreciate the color you have provided for long term, the financial color. Wanted to ask you about something which I guess is not a focus on for Roblox, the unique model of Roblox. You know, how money is recognized over time, so there hence the focus on bookings and free cash flow. But I guess as you get more with advertising, which is more, you know, upfront in terms of recognition, you know, how can we think about in terms of when you can reach positive earnings? If you ever look at the street estimates for earnings or, you know, negative earnings, it's all over the place. So just thought in terms of that. And then I have a second question in terms of maybe this is for Mike or for Manuel, I'm sorry, for Dave. For search and discovery, is there a business opportunity, or where would the business opportunity be in for paid ranking? Like, when you do a search, you know, someone pays to be like posted up pretty high in the search. So, thanks for taking my questions.
Yeah, I have feedback on both, but I think Manuel and Mike will probably both. I mean, my highest level feedback is we really run the business on bookings and cash. But
I was going to do that. I was going to say, why don't we do the other question
first? Yeah, and then on
first?
the search, I'll kick it over to Manuel, because I think Manuel showed actually a vision of paid ranking as well.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us. And if you think at the end of the day, when we make a recommendation of a content, one of the things that we can start modeling is what was the value of that impression. Because there's not only what people do when they engage in that content, there may be derivative value of actions they take downstream when they consume that. As we continue to tune the model, we're going to perfectly understand the value of a placement or the value of an impression that then could easily be translated into you can earn that impression because you're performing really well, or you can buy that impression with some spend. So we started testing. We have a sponsored row today on the homepage. Today it's at the bottom. We're beginning to test placing it higher. Eventually, what you can imagine, as Christina presented, is individual tiles that you could get placed in different places based on the people paying or buying for those advertising. And of course, we will clearly label those as a sponsored content on the platform.
So on the first question, without getting into a very, very detailed discussion of accounting policy, which would, you know, clear the room quickly, we start off by saying scale, growth, cash flow. We really believe, you know, in our hearts, that's what drives value. So brands are going to help us get bigger, they're going to help us grow faster, and they're going to help us generate more cash. Great businesses, high flow through, already absorb the fixed costs in our business. We're very comfortable and excited about that. As it relates to how things get reported, today, you know, bookings and revenue are different. We do focus on we run the business on cash, so we really have to more or less run the business on bookings, because if we didn't, then we wouldn't be making investments in hiring people and paying our developers and all the things that we do with that money that comes in the door. As ads layer on top, I think it makes it, you know, just an even better business model. So if you just think of that as bookings or as revenue, it's cash really quickly. And so I would just say that's top line, and that will just be accretive to the top line, help absorb more of the expenses, and again, have really strong cash flow characteristics incrementally to the business over a long period of time. So that's how we think about it.
Thank you.
I had a question on AR. So I guess for developers to build AR experiences, a lot of spatial data is required, and that spatial data could be something like a scan of someone's apartment or a theme park or a concert venue on a much larger scale. What are the technical hurdles to getting that spatial data into Roblox Studio? And over time, would that require a different level or spend of CapEx?
Yeah, so I think, you know, when I was up speaking about platforms, I mentioned there's arguably two more, either MR or AR type devices, AKA, and then also the living room. I think there's going to be a wide spectrum of AR type use. Some is going to require a full 3D scan type things, Others are going to be much more local client sensitive. For example, in Roblox Connect, one can imagine, in addition to both people being in Roblox Connect in an AI type world, we might just superimpose someone we're communicating with on a chair in the local room. So I actually, I'm more optimistic that there are not large hurdles to think about something like that.
And I think embedded in the question is this: if we see opportunities, but we had to ramp up capital spending or investment, I think that's sort of embedded in that question, maybe. So, a couple of thoughts. Again, we will continue to invest in the business. We want to be really clear. We've slowed the growth rate of investments down, and because we can now, and that's having benefit, and we want to continue to see that benefit. But we'll always look at the economic value of any investment, and if we think it's going to drive extraordinary returns and be really great for the platform, for our creators, for the users on the platform, we'll make those investments. So I want to set an expectation that we'll always think that way if it's going to drive value. The benefit that I think we have now of guiding is that we can get ahead of that a little bit with everybody and say this is coming, so we can talk about how that has an effect versus maybe surprising people with investments that we still believe generate long-term return, but maybe were unexpected. So anyway, and we really do think very much rationally and economically about these things. Dan, is always talking about what things cost if he's going to build something out and looking for capabilities. Very, very cost-focused as a CTO, I would just say. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, more questions. Thank you.
Hey guys. Historically, the ethos of Roblox has very much been in the mindset of build amazing tools, build an amazing platform, put it out into the wild and kind of see what comes of it. And it's been tremendously successful. Dave, how do you think about the changes required in terms of culture, or how you guys think about the business as you move more into advertising, which is much more of a we create it and then we push it out and we have to educate and we have to onboard, and it requires, I think, a little bit of adjustment or change of how you guys think about it. So what are kind of the risks or challenges or adjustments you guys are making around that?
I actually don't think there's any change. And I think we've been very, very fortunate and good at imagining what is the confluence of what's technically possible in a year or two with today's devices and networking with things that are ultimately inevitable and are going to happen. And I think that goes all the way back to the foundation of Roblox when we did very unorthodox 3D network multiplayer cloud stuff. There is a little bit of a watching things happen, but I always think it's very intentional. I think the advertising thing, given the amount of engagement we have, and people have been talking about this for 10 plus years. There were advertising companies created to do immersive advertising in games in 3D. They just never had the scale. They never had the simplicity of embedding all those ad units across many places. We finally have had that. So the advertising to me feels very authentically Roblox. I think we have all the early signals on the partners, the bookings that we're not sharing with you for Q3 and Q4, but we can see what those bookings are. 2 days ago, we reviewed Q4 and Q1 and the next 4 quarters of that real booking. So I think it feels authentic and exactly the way we've done things.
And if I may add super concrete examples, developers have complete control of the ads formats, where they place them in their experience, and eventually they could even modify the container to make it fit their look and feel of their experience. So we're always taking that developer view so that they can have a ton of control of what they're placing.
Yeah, and I will also just add on the brand's business. For years, brands are creating experiences where they're storytelling, they're involving the community, and they're learning from them and iterating, whereas in the past, it might have just been putting something in front of an audience and hoping that it works. But now they're really getting feedback from a community and building together. And a lot of the ad products are really discoverability tools for those experiences that they're storytelling and building with the community in. So we also think that that's a massive opportunity for brands moving in this direction.
Thank you. Next question.
Thanks. Clay Griffin from MoffettNathanson. Mike, can you talk about the opportunity for portals as a function for user acquisition, not for brands necessarily, but for existing developers on the platform? And just maybe, I don't know if you can size how you think the mix would look like between brands and kind of maybe native user acquisition. And do you think that that spend is going to be denominated in Robux, or do you think you're going to transact that inventory in dollars? Just want to get a sense of kind of how that's going to work.
Why don't you guys take?
Yeah, you want to go?
I can take it. I think that we're going to see a healthy mix of both brands and developers, and as the user base of Roblox users, but also the creators continues to grow, and as we continue to revamp our search and discovery, I think that there are always going to be more opportunities for people to say, I want to buy a sponsored tile or I want to buy a portal as a way to kickstart discovery of my experience and then get growth. So not very dissimilar to maybe what you saw on the mobile app space, that eventually the app developers became big spenders in customer acquisition. And I think that as more developers become savvy about their ROI of those investments, they're going to be spending more.
Yeah, and I think one can envision a future where there's a unification of many units in experience video, in experience portal, in experience brand, homepage tile, search, where both our creators as well as brands are able to bid on all of those.
Yeah, and the creators are using portals as well today, so it's not just for brands. And as more creators are building their businesses, we see a lot of UGC creators who are creating collections of digital fashion. They're now launching a shop for a collection, and now they can actually go and have people portal from one experience to another. So it is something that is for brands, but also our creator community.
Okay, we're going to try to get in one and maybe two more questions. So let's see what we can do here. Yeah, hi.
Thank you. I'm Martin Young from Oppenheimer. My first question, I have two questions. First question for Dan. In your last slide, you mentioned one of the upcoming features is dynamic price optimization. Can you talk about what that is, what that means for users? And the second question is, Dave and Manuel both talked about meeting users where they are. A lot of Roblox content are consumed outside Roblox, particularly YouTube. How do you bridge the watching and playing gap? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think you might have misunderstood my last slide. I was talking about how we do inference. I wasn't talking about a feature for users. I was saying, as a technical team, when we, let's say, have an ML challenge in front of us, an AI challenge in front of us, we're able to look at where do we get the best kind of bang for the buck on, do we run this on a user's device, but they have limited capabilities? Do we run this on our edge if latency is really important? Do we run this in our cloud on the back end? And we're able to break these problems down and kind of distribute. And it sometimes takes more engineering work. Getting these things to work well on a CPU, you really have to shrink the model, quantize it, distill it to get that to work. Might mean you launch a few months later to get that sort of capability, right? So that's what I was referring to. I wasn't referring to a user-facing feature. What I was referring to is the ability for us to explore that entire search space in the computational graph there between client to our cloud, between GPUs and CPUs, and build that into our design process as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think you highlight in a wonderful way the amount of kind of beyond Roblox influencer video things that are going on. A small hint with our Captures product that we shared at RDC is automating the creation of image and then video snapshots under developer control, and there's obviously a big gap between those, but there is a lot of opportunity on the video side of the moments that happen in Roblox.
And I'll share a little bit more. In our developer conference, we actually invited influencers. We have a large community of influencers that we have nurtured and partnered with. Some of these influencers have identified Roblox as a medium for them as well. Some of them have transcended to create Roblox experiences or be part of the Roblox ecosystem. And we recently, with video ads and allowing creators to start showing videos in their experiences, you could imagine that the same people who are creating video content could have social consumption of that content on our platform.
Thank you. So the moment is near. I want to thank all Roblox investors, shareholders, community members, players, large and small, for participating and for your support over the last 2 years as we've been public. And and we look forward to seeing you next year. And once again, thank you to the team and to everyone who organized this. We appreciate it. Thanks.
There is lunch that way, so go out and to the right. We'll be circulating around the tables. Look forward to continuing the conversation if you can hang out for a little bit longer, and we'll feed you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice job.
Oh, good job.